My daughter abandoned me with a note saying, "Goodbye, Pauper. I'm Paul Anderson," and that note came right after I gave her $5 million. See, Rebecca thought her inheritance came from her dead mother's wealthy family. She had no idea I'd sold my $8.2 million tech company to create every penny of it. While she was calling me a failure, buying mansions and designer clothes, I was living in a tiny apartment, watching her build a new life based on rejecting me completely. But Rebecca made one mistake. She got too confident. Last week, at her charity gala in front of 200 Silicon Valley elite, I stood up and told everyone the truth about the fake family trust, about selling everything I owned, about the sacrifices she never knew I made. Her world collapsed in minutes. Want to see how this ends? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers worldwide. This is the story of what happens when love meets betrayal, and why sometimes the truth is the greatest gift you can give. Let me take you back to March 9th, 2024, the day my world cracked in half. I was sitting in my modest two-bedroom apartment in Palo Alto, paying $2,800 a month in rent. The place wasn't much. Basic furniture, old Honda Civic parked outside with 127,000 miles on it. But it was home. That morning, Rebecca drove up in her brand new Tesla Model S white interior, custom everything, $125,000 of pure luxury. She walked in wearing a Chanel blazer I'd never seen before. Her engagement ring caught the light, 3 carats, Tiffany setting. I later learned it cost $85,000. "Dad, we need to talk." I made coffee. She didn't touch hers. "I've been thinking about our relationship," she said, "about who I am versus who you are." "Rebecca, now let me finish." Her voice was cold, clinical. "I graduated from Stanford. I have opportunities, a future. Bradley's family owns half of Napa Valley. Bradley Whitman III. Old money. The kind of family that traced their wealth back generations." "Your point?" "My point is that I can't keep pretending we're on the same level." She pulled out an envelope. "Cream stationery. Expensive. I received my inheritance from Mom's family trust. $5 million. My heart stopped. The Martinez family trust. The one I'd spent months creating with forged documents and a hired actor playing the family lawyer. "That money represents my real legacy," she continued. "Not this." She gestured around my apartment like it was contaminated. "Rebecca, honey." "Don't call me honey." Her eyes were ice. "I'm 26 years old. I deserve better than being anchored to someone who never achieved anything meaningful." The words hit like physical blows. 26 years of single parenting, working 18-hour days to build my company, selling everything to create her fake inheritance. She stood up, smoothing her blazer. "I've written you a note. It explains everything." The envelope felt heavy in my hands. I opened it slowly. 3 words in her perfect cursive handwriting. "Goodbye, Pauper." Nothing else. No explanation. No thank you for raising her alone after her mother died. No acknowledgement of the sacrifices I'd made. Just, "Goodbye, Pauper." "I've blocked your number," she said, walking toward the door. "And your email. Don't try to contact me. I'm starting fresh." "Rebecca, wait. I'm not Rebecca Anderson anymore. I'm Rebecca Martinez Anderson, honoring my mother's side of the family. The successful side." The door closed. The Tesla pulled away. I sat there holding that note for 3 hours. But here's what Rebecca didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined. 2 days later, I got a call from my former business partner, Stephen Miller. "Paul, I just saw Rebecca's engagement announcement in the Chronicle. Says she's an heiress worth $5 million. Since when did Sarah's family have money?" I'd never told Stephen about the fake trust, about selling TechFlow solutions to Google for $8.2 million in August 2022. About liquidating my entire life to create Rebecca's inheritance. "Stephen, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If someone gave everything they had to their child and that child called them a pauper, what would you do?" Long pause. "Paul, what aren't you telling me?" "Nothing yet, but I might need a witness soon." That night I called Linda Johnson, my real estate agent, the one who'd handled the sale of my Los Altos Hills mansion for $2.1 million. "Linda, do you still have all the paperwork from my house sale?" "Of course." "Why?" "I might need you to verify something publicly. Would you be willing?" "Paul, you're scaring me." "What's going on?" "Just hold on to those documents. I'll explain everything soon." The next morning I drove past Rebecca's new mansion. 5,000 square feet. $3.2 million. Bought with money she thought came from her mother's wealthy family.
money that actually came from selling my life's work. I parked across the street and watched her load shopping bags into her Tesla. Designer labels everywhere. She'd spent more in 6 weeks than most people make in 5 years. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Anderson, this is Margaret Torres from the San Jose Mercury News. I'm investigating inheritance fraud in Silicon Valley. Could we talk?" I stared at that text for a long time. Then I typed back, "Not yet, but soon." Because Rebecca had made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed that quiet meant weak, that modest meant poor, that loving meant foolish. She was about to learn the difference between inheriting wealth and creating it.
The difference between family money and family sacrifice. The difference between being given everything and giving everything away. And she was going to learn it in front of everyone who mattered to her. What Rebecca didn't understand was that her cruelty had consequences far beyond our relationship. By May, she'd become the darling of San Francisco high society. The Chronicle ran a feature story. Young philanthropist uses family fortune to give back. The article described her as self-made through wise family investments. Self-made with my money. She'd joined the board of 3 charities, donated $200,000 to Stanford's scholarship fund, all while telling people she'd overcome her difficult upbringing with a struggling father. The lies were spreading like cancer through Silicon Valley's elite circles. Bradley's family had embraced her completely. The Whitmans were planning a wedding at their Napa estate, 500 guests, the kind of event that makes social pages statewide, and Rebecca was loving every minute of it. She'd posted on Instagram, "Finally free to be my authentic self. Sometimes you have to leave toxic people behind to find your true family." Toxic people. That's what she called the man who'd given her everything. But here's what kept me awake at night. It wasn't just about the money or the lies. It was about what I'd created. By giving Rebecca everything she wanted, I'd taught her that she deserved it. By staying quiet about my success, I'd let her believe I was beneath her. By sacrificing my future for hers, I'd shown her that my life didn't matter. I'd raised an entitled, ungrateful person who thought love was a transaction and family was a convenience. The stakes couldn't be higher. If I stayed silent, Rebecca would marry into the Whitman family, believing she was something she wasn't. She'd build her entire life on a foundation of lies and contempt for the one person who'd truly sacrificed for her. But if I revealed the truth, I'd destroy her engagement, her social standing, her carefully constructed identity. The question was, which would hurt her more in the long run? I had my answer when Stephen called with devastating news. "Paul, I just got off the phone with Margaret Torres, that journalist. She's been investigating Rebecca's background. Apparently someone tipped her off about inconsistencies in the Martinez family trust." My blood ran cold. What kind of inconsistencies? The lawyer who supposedly set it up doesn't exist. The law firm? Fake address? "Paul, she's going to publish this story whether you cooperate or not." The walls were closing in. Rebecca had been so confident in her lies that she'd never bothered to cover her tracks properly. "There's more," Stephen continued. "Torres found out about our Google deal. She knows you sold TechFlow for $8.2 million. She's putting the pieces together. I had maybe a week before the story broke. Maybe less. Stephen, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've never told anyone." I explained everything. The fake trust, the inheritance, Rebecca's note, her complete rejection of our relationship. The silence on the other end lasted forever. "Jesus, Paul, you gave her everything. And she called me a pauper. What are you going to do?" That's when I made the decision that would change both our lives forever. Rebecca's charity is hosting a gala next weekend, 200 people, all of San Francisco's elite. The press will be there. Paul, she wants to live in a world where she's successful and I'm nothing, where she's generous and I'm toxic. Fine. But she's going to learn what those words actually mean. You're going to confront her, publicly? I'm going to tell the truth, all of it, in front of everyone who matters to her. That will destroy her life. Stephen, she already destroyed mine. The only question now is whether I let her build a new one on the ruins. The confrontation started 3 days before the gala. I drove to Rebecca's mansion Thursday evening. The Tesla was in the driveway next to Bradley's BMW. Dinner party in progress. I could see silhouettes through the windows. Laughter, wine glasses, the sound of success. I rang the doorbell. Rebecca answered, wearing a $1,000 dress. Her face went white. "What are you doing here? We need to talk." "I told you, we're done." Bradley appeared behind her, tall, confident, expensive watch. He looked at me like I was selling magazine subscriptions. "Is there a problem, sweetheart?" No problem, I said. Just wanted to congratulate Rebecca on her charity work. Dad, leave. Now. Actually, I'm curious about something. I looked at Bradley.
Has Rebecca told you about her inheritance, how she got it? Rebecca's grip tightened on the doorframe. Bradley doesn't need to hear this. Hear what? Bradley asked. The whole story, I said. About the Martinez family trust, about where that $5 million actually came from. Dad, stop. I think it's fascinating, I continued, how money can completely change someone's perspective on family. Sir? Bradley stepped forward. I think you should leave. Of course. Wouldn't want to embarrass anyone. But Rebecca couldn't let it go. The old pattern. She had to have the last word. You know what your problem is? She called as I walked away. You've never understood that some people are meant for better things. I turned back. Better things? Yes, better than working with your hands, better than struggling paycheck to paycheck, better than being ordinary. And you think you're better? I know I am. I have Stanford education. I have money. I have connections.
I have everything you never could give me. Bradley was watching this like a tennis match. The other dinner guests had moved to the windows. You're right, I said quietly. I never could give you those things. Finally, you admit it. Because you already had them. You just didn't know it. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Rebecca. Enjoy your dinner party. I drove away knowing I'd planted the first seed of doubt, but Rebecca couldn't leave it alone. Friday morning, she called from a blocked number. What did you mean last night? Hello to you too. Don't play games. What did you mean about me already having those things? Rebecca, why are you calling? I thought we were done. We are done. I just want to understand what you were implying. I wasn't implying anything. I was stating a fact. What fact? That Stanford education? That money? Those connections? You're right. I never could have given you those things. So you admit you're a failure. I admit I'm not the person you think I am. Long pause. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget I said anything. Dad, don't call me Dad. You made it clear we're not family anymore. That's not what I meant. Sure it is. You wrote it down. Goodbye, Pauper. Pretty clear message. I was angry. You were honest. For the first time in years. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. Rebecca, you have no idea what fair looks like. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. You want to know what's fair? Fair is when someone spends 26 years sacrificing everything for their child, and that child calls them a pauper. I never asked you to sacrifice anything. You're right. You just took it all and asked for more. That's not true. Isn't it? When did you last ask how I was doing? When did you last wonder how I could afford your Stanford tuition on a tech worker's salary? When did you question anything about your convenient inheritance? Silence. Rebecca, you want to know the truth about your inheritance? I know the truth. Do you? Have you ever seen the actual trust documents? Met the lawyers? Verified anything? I don't need to verify anything. I know who I am. You know who you think you are. There's a difference. Stop speaking in riddles. I'm not speaking in riddles. I'm giving you a chance to ask the right questions before someone else asks them for you. What does that mean? It means journalists are curious people. They like to verify things, especially when young philanthropists make big claims about family money. Are you threatening to go to the press? I don't need to threaten anything. The truth has a way of coming out on its own. Dad, what aren't you telling me? Everything, Rebecca. I'm not telling you everything. And I hung up. Saturday morning, the day before the gala, Stephen called with news that changed everything. Paul, Margaret Torres wants to meet. She's been digging deeper into Rebecca's story. What did she find? Enough to know something's wrong. The Martinez family in Guadalajara, they're working class. Always have been. No trust fund, no wealthy relatives. Sarah's father was a mechanic. I'd known this day would come. The fake trust had too many holes, too many fabricated details. There's something else, Stephen continued. Torres found your Google acquisition papers. She knows you sold TechFlow for $8.2 million. The walls were closing in faster than I'd expected. She wants to know why a millionaire tech entrepreneur is living in a rental apartment while his daughter claims to be an heiress. What did you tell her? Nothing. But Paul, she's going to figure this out with or without your help. Wouldn't you rather control the narrative? I drove to my storage unit that afternoon. The one Rebecca didn't know about. Inside were boxes of documents I'd hoped never to use. Google acquisition papers, bank transfer records, property deeds from the Los Altos Hills mansion sale. The fake Martinez family trust documents with their forged signatures and fictional law firm letterhead, and Rebecca's note. Goodbye, Pauper. I photographed everything, created a digital folder, 26 years of sacrifice documented in black and white. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Anderson, this is Margaret Torres. I've been expecting your call. I'm sure you have. Can we meet? I have questions about your daughter's inheritance claims. What kind of questions? The kind that could ruin her life if answered incorrectly. I thought about Rebecca in her mansion planning her charity gala, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. Miss Torres, what if I told you the story was more complicated than you think? I'd say that's exactly what I'm hoping to hear. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Palo Alto. Torres was younger than I'd expected. Sharp eyes, digital recorder ready. Mr. Anderson, my research shows you sold your company for $8.2 million in August 2022, yet your daughter claims her $5 million inheritance came from her mother's family trust. That's what she believes. But you know better. I stared at my coffee. 26 years of decisions had led to this moment. Miss Torres, what would you do if you loved someone so much that you gave them everything and they called you a pauper? I'd want the truth to come out. Even if it destroyed them? Especially then, because living a lie destroys people slowly. The truth just does it quickly. I slid a USB drive across the table. Everything you need is on there. Bank records, property sales, company acquisition documents. The real story of Rebecca's inheritance. Torres plugged in the drive, scanned the files. Her eyes widened. You created the entire trust? The lawyers, the documents, everything? Every detail. Took me 6 months to set up properly. Why? Because I wanted my daughter to be proud of where she came from. I thought if the money came from her mother's family, she'd accept it without guilt. But she used it to reject you instead. She called me a pauper, cut off all contact, built a new life pretending I don't exist. Torres was typing notes rapidly. Mr. Anderson, this story goes live tomorrow morning, the day of her charity gala. I know. You could stop this. Call your daughter. Work it out privately. I tried. She hung up on me. So you're willing to let her find out publicly? In front of 200 people? I thought about the note. About 26 years of sacrifice dismissed with 3 cruel words. Miss Torres, sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the truth they don't want to hear, even if it destroys everything they've built. Especially then, because what they've built is destroying them. Sunday evening, May 18th. The Silicon Valley Children's Foundation Gala at the Fairmont San Jose. 200 guests, the cream of tech society. I wasn't invited. Rebecca stood at the entrance in a custom Valentino gown, $15,000 of silk and diamonds. Photographers from 3 newspapers captured her arrival with Bradley. Miss Martinez Anderson, called a reporter. How does it feel to be honored as Young Philanthropist of the Year? It feels like destiny, Rebecca answered, her smile perfect for cameras. I've always believed that those blessed with family wealth have an obligation to give back. Family wealth. The lies came so easily now. I watched from across the street, streaming the event live on my phone. Social media was already buzzing with photos and hashtags. Bradley's father, William Whitman Jr., took the microphone for the welcome address. Tonight we celebrate young people who understand that true nobility comes from generosity. Rebecca Martinez Anderson represents the best of our community, someone who honors her family legacy through charitable giving. Applause filled the ballroom. Rebecca glowed in the spotlight, but I wasn't the only one watching from outside. Margaret Torres sat in her car, deadline approaching. The story was written, fact-checked, ready to publish. She was waiting for my final confirmation. I texted her, "Go live at 9 p.m. during the awards ceremony." Her response came immediately. "Are you sure? This will be nuclear." "I'm sure." 8:30 p.m. Rebecca took the stage to accept her award. "Thank you for this incredible honor," she began.
My mother, Sarah Martinez, always taught me that privilege comes with responsibility. Though she passed away when I was young, her family's legacy of success and generosity has guided my path. More lies. Sarah's family had never had money. Sarah herself had worked 2 jobs to help pay for community college. I'm proud to carry on the Martinez tradition of philanthropy. Tonight's donation of $500,000 to children's education represents just the beginning of my commitment to this community. $500,000. Money that came from selling my company, my house, my entire future. Some people are born into struggle, Rebecca continued. Others are born into opportunity. I believe those of us blessed with opportunity have a duty to lift up those less fortunate. The irony was staggering. She was talking about me, the man who'd created every dollar of her opportunity. My late mother always said that true wealth isn't what you have, but what you give away.
Tonight, I honor her memory and her family's values. 8:58 p.m., 2 minutes until Torres published the story. Rebecca was still speaking, completely unaware that her life was about to explode. I want to thank my fiancé Bradley and his family for embracing me, and I want to acknowledge that this journey required me to make difficult choices about toxic relationships that were holding me back from my true potential. Toxic relationships. She was talking about me at my own destruction. Sometimes you have to leave people behind to become who you're meant to be. Not everyone understands the responsibilities that come with real wealth and education. 9 p.m. Torres published the story. The headline hit social media like a bomb. Silicon Valley heiress built fortune on elaborate father's deception. Within minutes, phones throughout the ballroom were buzzing. Quiet conversations started at tables near the back. Confused whispers, screenshots being shared. Bradley's mother, Catherine Whitman, leaned over to her husband. I could read her lips. What is this about? On stage, Rebecca was oblivious, finishing her speech. In closing, I want to say that true success isn't about where you come from, but about having the courage to claim your rightful place in the world. Thank you. Applause, but scattered now, distracted. Half the room was reading their phones. Rebecca stepped off the stage, radiant with triumph. Bradley met her with a strange expression. Darling, we need to talk. Can it wait? I want to enjoy this moment. No, it can't wait. He showed her his phone. The Mercury News article already shared hundreds of times. I watched Rebecca's face change. Confusion, then shock, then pure panic. The article had everything. Bank records showing my $8.2 million company sale. Property documents proving I'd sold my mansion to fund her inheritance. Legal analysis of the fake trust documents. And Rebecca's note, "Goodbye, Pauper," reproduced in full. "This isn't true," Rebecca said, loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. This is some kind of mistake. But people were already connecting dots. The tech community was small. Everyone knew about TechFlow Solutions. Several people remembered when Google acquired it. Catherine Whitman approached with her phone. "Rebecca, dear, is this your father?" The photo showed me at TechFlow's headquarters, shaking hands with Google executives. The caption read, "Paul Anderson, founder of TechFlow Solutions, sold company for $8.2 million in 2022. "I don't understand," Rebecca stammered. "My father is a tech worker. He never owned a company." "According to this article," Catherine continued, "he sold everything he owned to create your inheritance. The Martinez family trust was completely fabricated." The ballroom was buzzing now. Conversations stopping mid-sentence. All eyes turning toward Rebecca. Bradley's father appeared, his face grim. "Rebecca, we need to discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss," Rebecca said desperately. "This is all lies, fake news. My father couldn't possibly—" "Rebecca!" Stephen Miller's voice cut through the noise. I'd asked him to attend as a witness. She turned, recognizing him from old family photos. "Stephen, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to confirm the story. Paul Anderson founded TechFlow Solutions in 2019. We sold it to Google for $8.2 million. Every word in that article is true." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca looked around the ballroom. 200 faces staring at her. Cameras still recording, social media still sharing. Her carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time. The silence in the ballroom stretched for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Then Rebecca found her voice. "That's impossible. My father drives an old Honda. He lives in a rental apartment. He's never had any money." Stephen stepped closer to the main stage. "Rebecca, your father chose to live that way. After he sold TechFlow, he put every penny into creating your inheritance." "No." Rebecca's voice was rising. "The money came from my mother's family trust. I have the documents." "Documents he created," Stephen said gently. "The Martinez family trust doesn't exist. Your father hired actors to play lawyers. He forged every signature." Margaret Torres had entered the ballroom, press credentials visible. Her photographer was capturing everything. "Miss Martinez Anderson," Torres called out, "would you like to comment on the bank records showing $5 million transferred from your father's account to the fake trust?" Rebecca spun around, cornered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Torres pulled out a folder. "These are copies of the transfer documents. 10 separate payments of $500,000 each. All from Paul Anderson's Google acquisition account. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Phones appeared everywhere, recording. Catherine Whitman looked at her son. "Bradley, did you know about this?" "Mother, I had no idea." Bradley's face was pale. "Rebecca told me her inheritance came from her mother's wealthy family in Mexico." "It did," Rebecca insisted. "My father couldn't possibly have $8 million. Look at how he lives." "Rebecca," Stephen said, his voice carrying across the silent room, "your father sold his Los Altos Hills mansion for $2.1 million. He moved to that apartment so you wouldn't feel guilty about the inheritance." "You're lying." Linda Johnson appeared beside Stephen. I'd asked both of them to attend as witnesses. "I'm Linda Johnson, Century 21 Real Estate. I handled your father's property sale in September 2022. He specifically asked me to keep the sale private so you wouldn't know about it." Rebecca's legs seemed unsteady. Bradley moved to support her, but she pushed him away. "This is a conspiracy. You're all lying." Torres stepped forward with another document. "Miss Martinez Anderson, this is your birth certificate. Your mother's maiden name was Martinez, but according to genealogy records, the Martinez family of Guadalajara has never had significant wealth. Your grandfather was a mechanic. Your grandmother cleaned houses." The words hit Rebecca like physical blows. "That's not possible. My mother told me." "Your mother died when you were 8, Stephen interrupted. "She never told you anything about family wealth because there wasn't any." William Whitman Jr. took the microphone from the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need a moment to process this information. Perhaps we should pause the evening's festivities." "No." Rebecca grabbed the microphone from him. "This is my night. I've worked hard for this." "Worked hard?" Torres challenged. "Miss Martinez Anderson, you've spent $340,000 in 6 weeks since receiving your inheritance. On what exactly have you worked hard?" The number hung in the air like an accusation. Rebecca's voice cracked. "I graduated from Stanford. I built relationships. I created a philanthropic foundation." "With money your father earned," Stephen said. "Money he gave you believing you'd honor the sacrifice." "What sacrifice?" "He never sacrificed anything for me." The murmur that ran through the crowd was disapproving. These were successful people who understood sacrifice. Linda Johnson stepped forward. "Rebecca, your father sold everything. His company, his house, his future. He kept only enough to pay rent on a modest apartment. Everything else went to you." "Why?" Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper now. "Why would he do that?" "Because he loved you," Stephen answered. "Because he wanted you to have the life he thought you deserved." "Then why didn't he tell me the truth?" Margaret Torres consulted her notes. "According to our investigation, your father believed that if you thought the money came from your mother's family, you'd accept it without feeling obligated to him." The irony was devastating. Rebecca had used the inheritance to escape the very person who'd made it possible. Bradley's mother whispered something urgent in his ear. He nodded grimly. "Rebecca," Bradley said, "we need to talk, privately." "No, I can explain this." Rebecca turned back to the crowd. "Even if this is true, it doesn't change who I am. I'm still the same person who donated $500,000 tonight." "With your father's money," someone called from the audience. "Money that belongs to me now. Money I've used responsibly." Torres flipped through her folder. "Miss Martinez Anderson, would you consider a $125,000 Tesla responsible? Or an $85,000 engagement ring? Or a $3.2 million mansion?" Each number was another nail in Rebecca's coffin. "I had every right to spend that money. It was legally mine." "Legally, yes," Stephen said. "Morally, that's for others to judge." Catherine Whitman stepped onto the stage. "Rebecca, dear, I think the question everyone's wondering about is the note you wrote to your father." The blood drained from Rebecca's face. "What note?" Torres held up a photograph, Rebecca's handwriting, clear and cruel. "Goodbye, pauper." "You called the man who gave you $5 million a pauper," Catherine continued. "Why?" Rebecca looked around desperately. 200 faces staring at her. No sympathy, no support, only judgment. "I was angry. He embarrassed me. He never understood my potential." "Your potential?" Stephen's voice carried disbelief. "Rebecca, your potential was funded entirely by his sacrifice. He chose to live small. That's not my fault." "He chose to live small so you could live large," Linda corrected. "There's a difference." The crowd was turning hostile now. Whispers of ungrateful and shameful rippled through the ballroom. Bradley stepped beside Rebecca. "I think we should leave." "No, I'm not leaving. This is my event, my achievement." "Achievement?" Torres challenged. What exactly have you achieved that wasn't purchased with your father's money? Rebecca had no answer. William Whitman, Jr. took back the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's clear we need to adjourn this evening's festivities. The Foundation will be reviewing tonight's donation in light of these revelations. You can't do that, Rebecca protested. I'm the honoree. You're an honoree based on claims that appear to be false, William replied firmly. The crowd began moving toward the exits. Conversations buzzed with shock and disapproval. Rebecca stood alone on the stage, her $15,000 gown suddenly looking like a costume. Bradley, you believe me, don't you? Bradley wouldn't meet her eyes. Rebecca, I need time to process this. Process what? Nothing's changed. I'm still the same person. Are you? Because the person I fell in love with told me she came from a family of successful philanthropists. She told me her father was an embarrassment who'd held her back. She told me she was self-made. I am self-made. You're made from your father's sacrifice, Catherine Whitman interrupted. There's nothing self about it. Torres approached for a final question. Miss Martinez Anderson, given what you now know about your father's sacrifice, do you have any message for him? Rebecca looked directly into the camera. For a moment I thought she might apologize, might show some recognition of what I'd done for her. Instead, she said, My father chose to live beneath his means. That's not my responsibility. I used the inheritance wisely to build a better life. I regret nothing. The gasps from the remaining crowd were audible. Even Bradley stepped away from her. Rebecca, he said quietly, I think we need to postpone the wedding. What? Bradley, no. This doesn't change anything between us. It changes everything. I thought I was marrying someone with character, someone who understood family loyalty. I do understand. You called your father a pauper. After he gave you $5 million, what would you call me if I disappointed you? Rebecca had no answer for that either. As the ballroom emptied, she stood alone under the spotlights, her world in ruins, and I sat in my car across the street, watching justice unfold in real time. Monday morning, May 19th. The Mercury news story had gone viral overnight. My phone was ringing constantly. Interview requests from CNN, Fox News, Good Morning America. The story had struck a nerve nationwide. Ungrateful children, family sacrifice, hidden wealth revealed. But I only answered one call. Mr. Anderson? This is Bradley Whitman. Bradley, I saw the news about the wedding postponement. Sir, I need to ask you something directly. Is everything in that article true? Every word. Long pause. Why didn't you ever tell Rebecca about your success? Because I wanted her to love me for who I was, not what I could provide. And instead she rejected you for who she thought you were. Exactly. Mr. Anderson, I owe you an apology. I should have questioned Rebecca's story more carefully. The inconsistencies were there. You're not responsible for her lies, Bradley. But I enabled them. I let her disparage you at dinner parties. I never asked to meet you properly. I assumed you were exactly what she described. I appreciated his honesty. What happens now? I'm calling off the engagement permanently. This isn't about the money, Mr. Anderson. It's about character. Someone who could write goodbye, Pauper, to the father who sacrificed everything. I can't build a life with that person. 2 hours later, my lawyer called. Paul, we need to discuss the inheritance reversal. Since the Martinez family trust was fraudulent, you have legal grounds to reclaim the $5 million. How quickly can we move? I can file papers today. Given the public documentation and media coverage, Rebecca won't be able to fight it. The money will be frozen within 48 hours. Do it. By Wednesday, the financial consequences were cascading. Rebecca's Tesla was repossessed. The $125,000 lease had been co-signed using the inheritance as collateral. Her Los Altos Hills mansion went into immediate foreclosure. The $3.2 million purchase had required only 5% down, but the monthly payments were $12,000. Without the inheritance income stream, she couldn't qualify for the mortgage. The engagement ring was returned to Tiffany. Bradley's family had purchased it expecting to welcome an heiress, not someone living on borrowed money. Margaret Torres called for a follow-up interview. Mr. Anderson, Rebecca's lost everything, her home, her car, her engagement, her charity positions. How does that make you feel? Sad, but not surprised. Do you regret exposing the truth? I regret that it was necessary. Rebecca could have avoided all this with 3 words. What 3 words? Thank you, Dad. Thursday evening, Rebecca finally called. Dad, we need to talk. I'm listening. You destroyed my life. I revealed the truth about your life. There's a difference. The press is calling me the most ungrateful daughter in America. People are sending me hate mail. I can't go anywhere without being recognized. Rebecca, what did you expect would happen when you called me a pauper? I expected you to take it like you always do, quietly, without making a scene. The honesty was breathtaking. She'd counted on my silence to protect her lies. Why are you calling Rebecca? I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? Stop the legal proceedings. Let me keep some of the money. In exchange, I'll publicly apologize and we can pretend to reconcile. Pretend to reconcile. Even now, it was about managing appearances. Rebecca, do you understand what you're asking? I'm asking for a chance to save face. You're asking me to enable your lies one more time. I'm asking you to be my father. I've been your father for 26 years. I sold my company to be your father. I sold my house to be your father. I gave up my future to be your father. What I won't do is pretend that being your father means accepting your cruelty. Dad, please. I'm losing everything. You lost everything the day you wrote that note. The rest is just paperwork. But I'm your daughter. You made it clear you didn't want to be my daughter. You wanted to be an heiress. Congratulations. Now you know what that actually costs. Friday morning brought the final financial blow. The Silicon Valley Children's Foundation announced they were returning Rebecca's $500,000 donation and removing her from their board. Given the circumstances surrounding Miss Martinez Anderson's donation, their statement read, we feel it's inappropriate to accept funds that were obtained through deception, regardless of the legal technicalities. Stanford University quietly removed Rebecca from their Young Alumni Spotlight page. The charity organizations she'd joined all requested her resignation. In less than a week, every aspect of the identity she'd built had collapsed. But the most devastating consequence was yet to come. Saturday morning, I received a call from Child Protective Services. Mr. Anderson, we've received reports that you may have engaged in financial manipulation of a family member. We need to interview you about your relationship with your daughter. The investigation lasted 3 days. Rebecca had filed a complaint claiming I'd psychologically abused her by creating the fake inheritance. The social worker, Janet Peters, interviewed us separately. Mr. Anderson, can you explain your decision to create a fraudulent trust fund? I wanted my daughter to have financial security without feeling obligated to me. And you thought deception was the best approach? I thought love was the best approach. I was wrong. When Janet interviewed Rebecca, the conversation was recorded. Miss Anderson, do you believe your father intended to harm you? He intended to control me. He wanted me to feel grateful so he could manipulate me. By giving you $5 million? By making me think it came from somewhere else. Why would that be manipulation? Because he wanted me to think I deserved it without having to thank him. Even Janet Peters seemed confused by the logic. The investigation concluded with a finding of no abuse. Rebecca's complaint was dismissed. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. 2 weeks after the gala, the consequences were still spreading like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. Rebecca's story had become a case study in business schools across the country. Stanford's ethics department was using it as an example of how privilege can corrupt character. Harvard Business Review published an article titled The Paul Anderson Syndrome, When Parental Sacrifice Enables Entitled Behavior. Rebecca had become the face of ungrateful children everywhere, but the personal costs were more devastating than the public ones. Bradley's family filed a breach of promise lawsuit, claiming Rebecca had misrepresented her background during their engagement. The Whitmans were seeking $200,000 in wedding planning costs and reputation damage. Rebecca's former friends from San Francisco society had completely cut her off. The social media posts were brutal. Screenshots of her calling me a toxic person and claiming to be self-made were shared thousands of times with laughing emojis. Her apartment applications were being rejected. Landlords were Googling her name and refusing to rent to that ungrateful daughter from the news. Employment was equally difficult. Rebecca's Stanford MBA meant nothing when potential employers associated her name with entitlement and family betrayal. Margaret Torres published a follow-up story tracking Rebecca's downward spiral. Former heiress Rebecca Anderson has been evicted from 2 apartments, rejected by 7 employers, and abandoned by her entire social circle. Sources close to the family say she's now living in a studio apartment in Oakland, working as a barista at Starbucks. A barista, after rejecting her father for being beneath her social circle. The irony was perfect, but I felt no satisfaction. Stephen called with updates from his tech industry contacts. Paul, word is getting around Silicon Valley about what you did. People are calling it the ultimate demonstration of parental love. I don't want to be anyone's hero, Stephen. Too late. You've become a symbol. Parents everywhere are sharing your story, saying it proves that sometimes love means setting boundaries. And Rebecca? Rebecca's radioactive. No one wants to associate with someone who treated their father that way, especially after he sacrificed everything for her. The tech community was small and tightly connected. Rebecca's reputation was destroyed permanently, but the most unexpected consequence came from an email I received Wednesday evening. Mr. Anderson, my name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm Rebecca's supervisor at Starbucks. I wanted you to know that your daughter is struggling significantly. She's often late, frequently calls in sick, and has difficulty accepting feedback. Yesterday, she told a customer that she wasn't meant for service work and that this job was beneath her education level. I'm writing because I'm concerned about her mental state. Rebecca was falling apart. Thursday night, she called again. Dad, I need help. What kind of help? I can't find anywhere decent to live. I can't get a job that pays more than minimum wage. People recognize me everywhere I go. Rebecca, what do you want me to do? I want you to fix this. Tell the press it was all a misunderstanding. Say we've reconciled. Help me rebuild my reputation. Help you rebuild your reputation based on what? Based on family loyalty. You're my father. You're supposed to protect me. I tried to protect you for 26 years. You called me a pauper and walked away. I made a mistake. You made a choice, a very public choice, with consequences. Dad, I'm living in Oakland. I'm working at Starbucks. I have nothing left. You have exactly what you had before the inheritance. The same education, the same abilities, the same opportunities. The only difference is that now you have to earn things instead of being given them. That's not fair. Rebecca, life isn't fair, but consequences are consistent. What does that mean? It means that people who show gratitude get more support. People who show cruelty get less. People who honor family get family benefits. People who reject family lose family protection. So you're abandoning me? You abandoned me first. I'm just no longer chasing after you. But I'm your daughter. You're an adult who made adult choices. Now you get to live with adult consequences. Dad, please, I'll do anything. Anything except acknowledge that your actions were wrong. Long pause. What would I have to acknowledge? That calling me a pauper was cruel and ungrateful. That rejecting me publicly was wrong. That you built your entire new identity on lies about my failures. I can't say that publicly. It would ruin what's left of my reputation. Rebecca, your reputation is already ruined. The question is whether you want to ruin your character, too. She hung up without answering. Friday morning brought news that the consequences had spread even further. Rebecca's Stanford alumni network had quietly blacklisted her from networking events. Her former sorority sisters had removed her from group chats and social media connections. The woman who'd once claimed to be finally free to be her authentic self had discovered that her authentic self was someone nobody wanted to know. 6 months later, I was living differently. Not in the mansion I'd sold, but not in the tiny apartment either. I'd bought a modest house in Mountain View. 3 bedrooms, small yard, mortgage I could easily afford. I was working again, too. Not because I needed the money, but because I missed the challenge. A consulting role with a startup developing AI for medical diagnostics, using my experience to help build something meaningful. The story had mostly faded from national news, though it still surfaced occasionally in articles about family dynamics and inheritance psychology. Rebecca and I hadn't spoken since that final phone call. According to Stephen, who heard things through his network, she was still in Oakland, still working service jobs, still struggling to rebuild any kind of stable life. Part of me felt guilty about that. The father in me wanted to reach out, to offer help, to fix things. But I'd learned something important from this whole experience. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. For 26 years, I'd taught Rebecca that she could take everything and give nothing back. That she could show no gratitude and still receive more gifts. That she could treat me badly and I'd absorb it silently. I'd thought I was being loving. Really, I was being weak. The irony was that by setting boundaries, by refusing to enable her cruelty, I was finally being the father she needed. Not the father she wanted, but the one she needed. Margaret Torres had called for a 6-month follow-up interview. Mr. Anderson, do you regret anything about how this played out? I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I didn't set boundaries earlier. I regret that Rebecca had to learn about consequences the hard way. Do you miss her? Every day. But I don't miss being treated badly. Would you reconcile if she apologized? If she genuinely apologized and showed real understanding of what she'd done wrong? Of course. She's still my daughter. And if she doesn't? Then she doesn't. I can't control her choices. I can only control my response to them. What would you tell other parents dealing with ungrateful children? That love isn't about giving people everything they want. Love is about helping them become people worth respecting. Sometimes that means saying no. Sometimes it means walking away. Sometimes it means letting them face consequences. Any final thoughts? Just that the greatest inheritance you can give your children isn't money. It's character, and character can't be bought or given away. It has to be earned. The interview ended there. Later that evening, I sat in my backyard thinking about the choices that had led me here. The 26 years of sacrifice, the fake inheritance, the cruel note, the public revelation. I'd lost my daughter, but I'd found my self-respect. It wasn't the ending I'd wanted, but it was the ending both of us had earned. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. And if you have children, remember, the greatest gift you can give them isn't everything they want. It's the strength to earn what they need. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, even when it breaks your heart.